Hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Senna and I'm glad to have you join me today. So if you've clicked on this video, you are probably in the process of applying for a degree in social work, either an undergraduate degree or a postgraduate degree in the UK or anywhere else in the West, or you've already started a process and you are due to have your interview very soon, or you're just thinking about the course or the profession, probably considering a career switch and stuff like that. So if you're in any of these categories, then I hope you find this video helpful and insightful. I've made some social work related videos in the past where I talked about my journey into social work and my progress so far. I'm still on the master's course due to finish very soon. I've also made another video talking about the master's application process for social work in the UK, and then another one talking about the university interview process. So if you've not seen any of those videos, I'm going to leave them linked in the description box below or somewhere on the screen for you to check it out after you're done watching this video. But I noticed that I've not really done an in-depth video talking about like what social work really is about. If you're due for an interview, you are probably going to be asked a question around what you think social work is about, stuff like that. They would like to test you to know if you've done your research and things like that, so you want to probably take notes during this video. But yeah, so I've not done an in-depth video, and so in today's video we are going to take a closer look at what social work is like, what does it involve, and what are the roles and opportunities available in the field of social work in the UK. So if you're interested in knowing about this, then keep on watching. Okay guys, so I have my notes right here. In fact, I have my laptop. I typed them out, so pardon me if I look down every now and again. But what is social work, you may ask? Social work is simply a profession that is focused on helping people who may be facing social, economic, or personal challenges. So you could be helping people facing a range of challenges, from the simplest difficulties to the most complex of cases. So social workers are trained to provide support, advice, and advocacy to individuals, families, communities in order to promote their general well-being, right? So as a social worker, you could be working with people from different ages and diverse backgrounds, and often you'd be working in situations that are really complex and sensitive. So in a nutshell, that is really what social work is. You need to be able to be trained in order to be provided the skills that you need to support people who may be experiencing very challenging and difficult situations in their lives. So what does the role involve? Like, what would your life look like if you are in this profession? So some of the things that social workers do includes assessing needs of individuals and families. So let's take for instance, a child may have disclosed in school that they have been beaten by their parents at home, or any other adults, or anyone else at all. Or maybe the child is has withdrawn, it's no longer their usual self. The school has just noticed some significant changes about the child or just their physical presentation in school, and they're really worried. Sometimes schools have a responsibility or a duty to provide interventions as well, but when the case is too complex or it's kind of chronic, they do a referral to social services. So when the referral comes in like that, you find yourself doing an assessment, which is like the initial thing that you even do, like that involves going to see the family, talking to the child, talking to the adults around the child to explore the referral concerns, and then begin to think of what we can do to support the family. So that's the first thing. You'll be doing needs or risk assessments as a social worker. Now another thing that social workers do is to come up with care plans and support packages. So depending on whether you're working with children or adults, you'll be coming up with like plans to be able to meet the needs that you've identified through your assessments. So let's take the child who has been physically chastised by their parents, for instance. You might in your plan, you might have something like work with the parents to provide them or equip them with better ways of setting boundaries with their children, rather than hitting them, stuff like that. And to be able to provide this support and care packages, you need to have an awareness of the community support services around you. So social workers are really knowledgeable about the type of support services around us, because we can't do everything, right? Like local authorities or the organization on its own cannot solve every problem, and so there are like charities and just individuals who provide support and packages to families. So you need an awareness of all these things to be able to share information and advice with families as well. So that's the second thing that social workers do, developing care plans and support packages. Another thing that they do is providing emotional and practical support, which is closely linked to what I've just said. So sometimes what individuals really need is just someone to listen to them, to hear them out. Some people are just so marginalized in society, like nobody is giving them attention. Everyone is just going about their duties, their busy life, and someone might be struggling with depression, their mental health, and they just need someone to listen to them, someone to believe them. Let's take a woman who is suffering from domestic violence in their relationship, for instance. People might not always believe them, but social workers are there to support them, to listen to them, to refer them to services that will be able to help them navigate such a challenging situation. So that's another thing that we do. Another thing that you might be doing as a social worker is advocating on behalf of service users. So this is one of the primary things that social workers do, like providing advocacy for people. That people who have experienced lack and poverty and marginalization, usually they feel very disempowered. They feel like society has let them down. Some of them have given up on life, and some of them find it very difficult because of the situation they find themselves in, to be able to access support service or just things that are due them, really. So as a social worker, with your knowledge about the resources and the tools available to people, you'll be able to advocate for them, even if it's just in a meeting where everyone is like coming for a family or an individual. You can be their voice, you can be the one who is there to speak for them, to be their voice in that situation that is threatening to suppress them further than they already are. So that's another thing that you'll be doing as a social worker. Also, you'll be liaising with other professionals and agencies. So you'll be working with the school, as I mentioned earlier. You'll be working with like health, so nurses, doctors. Sometimes you'll be working with the police if like there's a child protection concern, or if there's a safeguarding concern in general, that could be for an adult or a child. So you might find yourself working with professionals, and like that is really at the root of it. Like I mentioned earlier, we can't do everything on our own, so you would find yourself liaising with, working with professionals, in a meeting setting, or just really conducting home visits. You might be doing like a joint visit with the police, for instance, or just anything at all. You are likely to be working with other professionals. Social workers also get involved in monitoring and reviewing the effectiveness of interventions, and that is one of the core functions of social work. So if you've done your assessments, you've developed care plans that needs to be put in place to ensure that change happens in the lives of individuals and families, you need to be able to review these plans from time to time to see whether the interventions that you've put in place for families are working right. So that is another thing that you'll be doing. And finally, social workers are involved in promoting social justice and human rights in the community. Like that is one of the core foundation of social work. Like when you look at the profession from the times that it emerged, this is one of the things that really brought the profession into light, if that makes sense. Like there was so much advocacy when the world was at a point where there was so much injustice going on, so much inequality, disproportionality. Individuals came up and started speaking against these things, demanding that the right thing is done, that justice is served, and that is where the profession came out from. So that social justice is something that is at the core of social work. Even if you are not at the forefront of fighting for equality and human rights, even in your own small way, in working with families and working with communities, you want to make sure that you are advocating for voices that are suppressed, basically. So that is what is involved in social work, really. And it could be far more than this. Like the role is so varied, it's so multifaceted. You'd find yourself doing so many things. So yes, that is what is involved in social work. Now let's move on to the roles and the opportunities available in the field of social work in the UK. So if you have a degree in social work, or if you study social work in the UK, you have the chance to either work with children and families or with adults. So that is one of the things that you could do. You could work as a children and family social worker, supporting, working with families in need, often in the context of child protection or family support. So family support in the sense that you'll be coming in to offer preventative services, to offer family support. Maybe they are struggling with poverty and lack, so you connect them with the resources that they may need. Maybe they are struggling with their housing payments, or they are struggling with paying their electricity, stuff like that. You connect them to the services that would be able to help them to pay up these things, or get an accommodation if that's what they need and stuff like that. Or you could be working in the child protection context, when there are concerns that this child may be at risk of harm, at risk of harm. You come in, do assessments, do investigations, sometimes jointly with the police, and if these investigations substantiates whatever allegations that have been made, or whatever concerns that have been raised, that this child may indeed be at significant harm, that the child is likely to be put on a child protection plan. If things escalate and whatever plans are put in place on the child protection plan are not really improving the situation, then the local authority is likely to go into care proceedings. So that is what you'll be doing, coupled with some of the things that I mentioned earlier. As a children and family social worker, you'd be mostly working in child protection context or family support. So another thing that you could be doing is working with adults, and this could look like supporting adults who may be vulnerable, the elderly, or adults who have disabilities. So you'll be working in the context of community care or mental health. So in the UK, the population is kind of aging, and there are so many adults who may be vulnerable, or they may be isolated, or they may be struggling with their mental health or their physical health, or they have a disability or whatever. So if adults are in need, sometimes they present to local authorities, or just people in the community make referrals to social services. So you find yourself going out to do assessments, coming up with care plans or support packages, or measures or safety plans to make sure that adults are safeguarded who may be at risk. So that is another thing that you could be doing as a social worker in the UK. Or you could be specifically based in the mental health social work setting. So you've been working specifically with people who are struggling with their mental health. So you could either be based in a clinical or a counseling setting, or you could be based mostly in a hospital setting if you're working in mental health social work. There's another one closely linked to this, which is forensic mental health social work. So this really has to do with people who have offended due to their mental health difficulties, if that makes any sense. So forensic social work is another field of social work that you can go into if you have a degree in social work in the UK. Now, another one that you can look at is the youth justice system. So there are social workers in the youth justice system who support young people who are at risk or who have experienced offending. So this is often in the context of the criminal justice system, as I mentioned earlier. So yes, you could be a youth justice social worker if you are really interested in contextual safeguarding issues, like extra familial harm issues, like when children are exposed to offending, or children are exposed to groups that are likely to lead them to this path, or they've already offended, anything the criminal justice system with adolescents involved. That is what youth justice social work is about. And then finally, you could be working in education. So there are social workers who are based in schools. And this is not a very common thing in the UK compared to the US, but it is coming up now. I know that in the local authority where I'm based now, they are testing this out in some schools in South London. So that is something that is coming up now. And if you're interested in working in schools but you don't want to be a teacher, then you could consider being a school social worker. So you'll be supporting people, individuals in school, to come up with support plans and interventions before issues really escalate to local authority social work intervention level, if that makes any sense. So yes guys, that is those are some of the opportunities available to you if you come study social work in the UK. Sometimes if you've even qualified in your country, you could, you know, switch to being a social worker in the UK. There are ways. Hopefully maybe someday I'll bring a video like that to you, but for now this is all I have for you in today's video. If you are going to be, you know, if you are going to have your interview very soon, most likely they are going to be asking you questions like this, so just make sure that you prepare in this regard as well. Okay guys, so this is all I have for you in today's video. If you've watched to this point and you're not yet subscribed, kindly consider joining the family for more informative content like this. Also feel free to leave your topic ideas in my comment section below and I just might do your video. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I will see you in my next one.